what is it like living with prostate cancer? Anyone want to take a stab at that?
I have great days 99% of the time, just as a person, even before I had it. But some days, you kind of feel down. You don't feel like you're all there, which you're really not. But in general, it's it's different. Everything just doesn't seem to work like it used to, and you wish it did, but it's not going to come back.
I find myself measuring everything that happens to me in that frame. The frame of, is this the next thing that the prostate cancer is going to do to me? If I am constipated one day, oh, it must be prostate cancer is doing this. If I don't feel like eating, why am I going to lose weight? It must be, it's there. It just sits there. It's
black cloud.
It's this cloud that just sits there and says, oh, something's going to happen. It's
the overhang?
Yeah, it's the overhang.
I heard physical, and I heard psychological, and I guess I'd be curious to know, kind of what's the balance there in terms of living a day to day. Is it the psychological issue?
I was going to say that it is psychological in that regard for me. I consciously push that out and say to myself, you can't do that, and then go on with my life. We'll get into this, I guess, later on, but it's this concept. I disagree and I object to the concept that we're in a fight, that this is combat of some sort, or this is a battle. I don't like words. I don't even like the word survivor. I just don't think that's the attitude that is healthy for us.
So what attitude do you think?
My attitude is that it's a continuum. Mm-hmm. Everybody dies of something.
Right.
Cancer is life. It's not death. It's part of life. I'll tell you a story, and I no longer have this urologist, and I think I told a couple of people this story, but when I was midway in Lupron treatment, I started having memory problems, and I was really getting annoyed with this. And I was saying to him, I really want to stop this Lupron as fast as I can. And he said, well, what's the side effects all about? What are they like? And I made a joke. I said, what were we talking about? And he didn't like that. He didn't like that. He said, you have to take this serious. This is a very serious issue. And then he said, you're fighting for your life. And I said, wait a minute. I said, you're fighting for my life. And I said, and if I make a joke, deal with it. I'm your patient. To me, it's a life. It's a continuum. I don't want to be treated that way. I don't want to be looked at like I'm different.
One of my core issues is that men have to be prepped much better before they go on to ADT, and they have to be supported much better whilst they're on ADT. And there are certain things that we've done along the way, and I'll give you a brochure that we got printed up at UCSF. We're starting a side effects clinic at UCSF that I've been pushing for a while. Men need support. This issue of depression, which keeps coming up time and time again. I mean, I'm fortunate. I've lived with depression most of my life. It's a genetic problem in my family. I was ready for the depression. I just doubled my meds, and I knew the black cloud came down. I knew the black cloud was going to lift. But there are men here sitting in this room who have never experienced depression. When that black dog comes for the first time, you just want to kill yourself. And we are not prepared for this. Lupron is like slow drip chemo. And the impact of Lupron has affects so many different areas of your body that a urologist who is a surgeon or a radiation oncologist is not well prepared to deal with.
Everyone, to my urologist, to my oncologist, radiation oncologist, oncology nurse, they all spoke of depression. To the point I was like, wow.
I guess
But, when you get down into it, I knew what it was. And I had very short episodes. It would be like a Saturday and a Sunday, and then little things in between. But on the other hand, I was so hit over the head with it, and we should be warned. But I remember the radiation oncology nurse leaning over saying, are you okay? And I told the story to someone. I said, what do you mean? Are you really okay? And I just said, if you think I'm going to kill myself, that'd be rather productive to what we're doing here. But yeah, a lot of men go through this and they never heard the word depression.
I think you were lucky. I mean, I think if you polled the men I mean, how many men in this room have been on Lupron for any period of time?
I've never been on Lupron.
You've never been on Lupron.
There are other drugs out there.
So or when I say Lupron, an LHRH drug. How many have been on an LHRH drug?
Right.
Okay. So of there's 5, 6 of us. How many do they feel were properly warned about the impacts of Lupron?
Just you and I.
Pretty good.
And like you, maybe it's us, because like you, I suffered from depression in and out of my life. And maybe it's our attitude in some degree.
Let me ask a different,
Maybe
just
we're
in a
not
slightly
listening.
different way, and that is how many of those of us who felt like we were warned also went out and did some research on our own? I mean, is it? So I mean, that's a given, right?
Gotta do that.
So, yeah, okay.
I feel I was informed, but no one really stressed the depression. It was more loss of libido, fatigue, and things like that. But that didn't really
My
come
wife
up a lot.
did. She told me all about that. She said, "You know what's happening to you?" At one point, she noticed it, and she really woke me up to that, because those things were happening, and I was. You get into this zone, and you start spending your day dealing with these things, and you forget that someone else can see this too. So
Right.
that people
Right.
outside you can see it.
So how many here have had a real crash and burn day?
Oh God, many.
Oh. And what's that like?
I had 3 experiences, all of it while I was on Lupron, and it lasted a day of just detachment, sitting in a chair, just in a black hole. And I got myself out of it twice by watching the movie Rocky, which I find to be a very uplifting and
You're a strange man.
hopeful. And the third time I had a talk with myself that, you can't do this, you can't let it happen, get over it, move on.
Yeah, I think forewarned is forearmed, because then you can say 2 rungs up, 2 rungs up, 2 rungs up, and in a day or 2 you'll be fine. Most of the times.
I think one of the most difficult things for me, and I've had a number of crash and burns, and I don't know how many of you have thought about this, but it's wonderful to be able to pick up the phone or to have somebody say, pick up the phone and call me. Don't go through this alone. And the problem for me is it's been a number of times in recent months that I've been crashing and burning. I'm into the second half of the Lupron treatment, and it is so cumulative, and I can't predict when it's going to happen. It's just, I wake up and I'm having a fine day. Made breakfast for the wife. She's off to work. I'm doing some chores, and just all of a sudden I fall apart. I just sit down and I say, "What the?" And I can't explain why that happens. And sometimes, an hour or 2 later, I'm okay. Just a little thing. A couple of times it's been a big crash and burn. And one of the things that's been helpful for me is my wife can see it. And she says, "I'm just going to give you some space. If you want me, I'm here." Sometimes she'll just come over and do a little rub on the shoulder or something. Just a touch. I'm here. And that helps me a lot. But sometimes you can't. And I just hope the next morning I get up and it's going to be better. And a lot of times it is. I get up the next morning and she says, "How are you?" I said, "I'm okay. I'm just going to go slow here and just get through the day." And it seems to be okay. But it's very difficult.
I feel like the odd man out. So I've not experienced depression, and I think one thing that's worth noting is that Lupron is not the only LHRH drug that's out there. And I have talked to guys who, having changed from Lupron to some other drug, found that helped them. I'm not saying that's the solution. But again, everybody, as we know, everybody responds differently to everything about prostate cancer. There are no 2 similar courses. But it might be something worth considering if you're talking to your doc about LHRH antagonists or agonists. There are choices out there.
The biggest thing for me is worry. I just worry about, God forbid, someday this coming back. And for me, I would have to say that's the number one thing about getting prostate cancer that's affected my life. It's just that I get up every day and I worry about it. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, by far, the biggest side effect. I don't know that necessarily I'm going to blame Lupron for that. I think it's just a personality type of, and maybe the way I'm wired. But for me, that's been the biggest issue.
The one thing I can share is my experience when Dr. Myers, this is now a year post-surgery, when I met with him, and he was basically explaining to me that from his experience, guys like me tend to see recurrence 12 to 13 years post-surgery. And here I was 45, and that was just like about the worst kind of
That's devastating.
message I could hear. And so we set up my, all my plan for, as he called it, stacking the decks in my favor. And I remember, and he set me up on a 3-month, getting checked every 3 months. I remember saying to him, how long are we going to do this? And he just looked me in the eyes and he said, until you die. And that was like the turning point for me where I really realized what I was dealing with. But he also said the most powerful thing to me, which really framed kind of my mindset. And he said, think of this as a life illness that we're going to manage. He said, get over trying to beat this and win. He said, you're going to manage it. He said, a lot of people live in this world managing their illness, and that's the mindset I want you to have. And for me, that really helped, because I wake up every day and I'm managing my cancer.
I'm more in the mental side, right? So I'm 9.5 years. I'm coming up on that 12 years, recurrent cycle, and I'm acutely aware of that, and so it is there all the time. It's kind of that monkey on your back. So what I do, you can look at me. I used to be like 165, okay, which is my normal lifelong weight. So I'm down to 150. And that's through diet and exercise, because I think that's the only thing I can do, right, to push this recurrence back.
There's a psychological benefit to that is so absolutely important. I went to a cancer conference once, and one of the speakers said, cancer is a metaphor for loss of control. And anything you can do as a, whatever you want to call it, Tom, patient, survivor, whatever, anything you can do that gives you a sense that you are exerting some control over what you do day in and day out, and that gets down to diet, exercise, your attitude, and those are the things that will empower you and deal with some of this crud.
But it's not always easy.
Exercise is critical. I mean, I've taken a commitment that I will help Greg over the next 3 months, and we will get him exercising. It's going to make a huge difference in his life, because so many of the side effects from Lupron can be modified with exercise. And if you are not on Lupron, exercise is just as important in terms of you managing the disease. The second issue is that I have found it very helpful personally to live in the moment.